I'm Amy Cunningham. I'm a licensed funeral director. I am a home funeral guide in Brooklyn, New York. I help people with green burials, home funerals, and cremations at a very beautiful crematory in Brooklyn at Greenwood Cemetery. I've been licensed for about 7 years, and what we're going to share with you this morning is a platform that my husband Steve has developed in response to what he was seeing in my funeral practice. And it's applicable to everyone in the room. It's a method of storytelling, a way of revealing the life of the recently deceased, so that, and it's a tool that families use. As a director, I often get them started with it. I introduce them to it, but it's really theirs to experiment with, and it's no more difficult than Facebook, and it's much better than Facebook as a way to announce a death and a way to show the story of the life of the person we've been honoring. I know a lot of you are not digital people, and you may find the internet cold, but Steve and I have found repeatedly that this is very helpful to my families and the families that have found their way to the platform, and it has interactive potential that other sites and obituary platforms do not. For instance, we're projecting up here the obituary that is developed by a very fine funeral firm in Manhattan, where they get the basic stats and facts of the life from the family, and then they post the death to the funeral home website. We think that a funeral, I go to all the funeral conventions now, and funeral firms are excited about the possibilities of using their websites, their marketing websites, as places to post obituaries, because they feel it generates a lot of traffic to their site and page views, and they want families to post the death there. And we find this not completely satisfactory. Oftentimes on the obit of your loved one, there will be advertising. You might get a notice a few months later that you have to pay a little bit more money to keep it up. What else about this, Steve? Oh, by the way, this is my husband, Steve Waldman. Married 30 years, 2 boys, and we were both, we met through journalism. We're both magazine writers, and have collaborated and are currently working on either ends of our dining room table now that the boys are out of the house. That's our desk right now, and it's working. The name of the platform is LifePosts.com, and we feel like telling the story of a person's life is key to the bereavement period. I see this helping a lot of people. And also, we would like dying people in hospice to begin to think about this as a possibility and have hospice workers offer this kind of thing to the families of someone who is in the 6-month period of hospice and dying. Dying people want to feel that their life mattered and that their life was important. They want to tell their stories. Sometimes Buddhists or people might say, oh, this is just the life of the ego. This is about their work and their accomplishments. Actually, the way this works and what we're going to show you is a way to really show the life of a person in all of its variety, and show this website platform will hold video, audio. You can post a video of the entire funeral service. You can post audio. You can interview the dying person with your iPhone and post that after the death to this platform. This, by the way, is also applicable to any major life event. We have bar mitzvahs, we have weddings, we have 50th wedding anniversaries, and timeline. So in a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Steve so he can really introduce you to how this works and how you interact with it and how you can easily build one for your own. It doesn't matter how long the person has been dead. I built one for my father who'd been dead 7 years and finally built a timeline to his whole life from his birth in 1914 to his death in 2009 with all the very fascinating steps along the way. So it's a way of empowering families to control the memory, and it's better than what the funeral homes are offering. And you may live in a small town that still does nice obituaries in the local paper. How many of you have a good local paper that gives deceased people a pretty good send-off?
Amy, one of the things that you said about advertising is that I've noticed that with the newspaper obituaries, funeral directors started to advertise on the end of each one. So
Yes.
One whole broadsheet.
Right.
All you see is all these logos, which is so.
Sometimes they'll post the death on their site as a death announcement, and then there's a link to here's how to buy flowers. That's cool. A lot of people find this super convenient, but I don't think it's our thing. In the New York Times, you can, our local paper in New York City is the New York Times. So in order to have an obituary there or a memorial write-up, you have to have either won a Nobel Prize or invented something really important. And people have studied, they've gotten better, but as I said yesterday, they've studied the obituaries. They're predominantly male and very much about the work of the life and classist, yes, thank you. And if you don't get your loved one in New York City written up that way, then you can pay thousands of dollars for what is a death notice. And I work with families on these, and here's a man with a fairly long one. This must have cost $10,000, I swear. So again, we want to support our local papers. They need the money, and this is a good thing, but it's not for everyone. So with that, I'll turn it over to Steve, and he'll show you how you can give the families you're working with the gift of the story.
Thank you. Well, and also just to start of how I got into this was really started through a very different path. I'm a journalist, and I was doing work on trying to help local media survive and looking at the collapse of newspapers and what that was doing to communities. And it's, the problem is, there are lots of problems with that, including not covering City Hall and things like that. But as I was working on that, Amy was starting her work as a funeral director, and she would come home telling me stories about the incredible families she'd worked with, just incredible people. Not necessarily because they'd won Nobel Prizes, but because they were, the person on the block who took in all the runaways, or they had raised, a dozen kids and grandkids and foster kids, or just led regular lives of great character. And I would always ask, is there something I could read about this person? And she would almost always say, no, nothing has been written about this person. And in one kind of manic weekend, as I started to sort of become obsessed with this, I counted all the obits in Brooklyn. About 15,000 people die in Brooklyn each year. And by my rough calculation, maybe 300 or 400 of them got write-ups, even lousy little write-ups. But that means 14,000 of the 15,000 vanished without a trace, without any record that they existed or any telling of their story. So that was actually what first got me into this. I was just appalled by that and saddened, and just on a basic human level, as a matter of history, as a matter of community, and just human dignity, that this seemed horrifying to me. As I got into it and started, going more into Amy's world, and also researching in the sort of grief counseling world, it's now a very commonly discussed thing that one of the most important parts of the grief process is the telling of stories, and biography making, to be even more specific about it, and that's actually very therapeutic. And the newspapers and the funeral homes right now are in this sort of sad state where most newspapers have stopped doing staff-written obituaries. That's largely a thing of the past. There's a handful of papers that still do it, but most of them are pushing you towards the paid death notices, which, for one thing, are expensive. Like, it's very expensive in the New York Times, but I get kind of emails all the time. I got one the other day from someone in Arizona who said the Arizona Republic, to have a little 300-word death notice was like $600. And so people are paying thousands of dollars for lousy little death notices that are teeny tiny little type, and if you pay extra, you can get a photo with it. And increasingly, there's a real class issue to this. Like, obits and death notices were never particularly democratic, but they had a little like high water mark where they were trying to tell stories of regular people. That's kind of all fading away now, and now you really have to be affluent in order to afford a death notice, and if you don't, that's it. You can post it on Facebook, but there's no place to kind of have a properly curated telling of the story. So we got a bunch of people together to try to figure out what are the ways that could really help families take control of this and tell the stories that they want, given the fact that most people are actually intimidated by storytelling. I have a feeling maybe this room is not, but most of the people we deal with, they actually get paralyzed.
And families are in different parts of the country.
That's true. So people are spread all over the place. Now, at its best, the internet actually solves some of those problems. It enables people to participate from all over the place. So we're going to show you just a couple of examples. This is actually one that is unusual in that this was a friend of ours. This just happened recently where she was both a friend and Amy was doing the funeral. And we have a few different...
Start with overview and then...
Well, here's life story. I don't actually have...
Each person has their 4 different pages.
Well, you don't have to use all 4 tools. This is just, it's up to you. Most people just use one. In this particular case, we used all 4 because we kind of went to town. But life story is the most kind of straightforward. It's like an article template. And honestly, here the goal was to make it aesthetically look nice. And basically, I come from a magazine background, and famous people get beautiful magazine treatments, and we said everyone should have a beautiful magazine treatment. And so this is just a kind of straight up magazine-y looking thing where you can mix text and photos and video, and people can add their own comments at the end.
One great thing about...
Sure.
One great thing about Kukula, our friend, is that she had a marvelous way of touching children. She's a very tactile, sensuous woman. So her brother posted a video of her holding his son, and just with her arthritic thumb, just stroking the baby with her thumb. So that kind of little moment of a person's life and that sense of their personality is captured through the video he posted.
Timeline, oops, I forgot we're not live. We don't actually have internet connection. Okay. Timeline is a way of organizing someone's life chronologically, and you can basically add to this over time. One of the things we're always telling people is when you think about the tradition as it's developed for telling someone's biographical story is actually kind of insane. As someone who used to write profiles professionally for a living and found them to be very difficult to do, like one of the hardest types of article to write, and yet what we're routinely demanding of people is write a profile of someone you really love in 48 hours while you're grieving and exhausted. So what we tend to say to people is, yes, you should get something up quickly to kind of announce the death, get the information about the service, and give people a kind of vehicle for reacting. But one nice thing about the internet is you can do this over time. And in fact, we actually sort of say take a year, not a week. And you can add. So if you think of another moment from their life that you forgot about the previous week, what's that? Yes, it's not a live site, so I can't prove it to you, but yes. If you click on that 5, it's a whole photo gallery. So each time slot can have its own photo gallery. So if you have a thing on the wedding, you can have 70 photos from the wedding just in that spot. So it's a really good way of organizing photos and videos too.
It becomes like a memory chest, so that everything is housed, including condolence notes from your internet-y friends could be posted as part of this rather than be lost in the Facebook feed. It pains us when folks are posting, although it's increasingly more commonplace, and it's okay, but to post a recent death on Facebook wedged between the latest Trump video and cats who look like Hitler is kind of a down.
As great a website as that is.
There's also, on the overview page, there is a box that you can elect to fill out where the funeral information, the time, and a link to a map can be posted. So that it can be, the URL link can be sent in an email to folks who are not wanting to do much more than that, and they can get directions to the funeral service.
So the third tool was really very much geared toward trying to solve the problem of people who are paralyzed by storytelling. And very often if you say, share your thoughts about Kukula, everyone gets stuck because that's a hard thing to do. You start to think, I've got to come up with something profound, or I've got to come up with the one thing that's going to somehow capture her essence. And what we found was that a much more effective thing was to break it down into very particular questions. And so this is a tool, LifeQues, that is basically a system of question and answer prompts. When you first get there, there'd just be these green boxes. And you can change these, you can write your own, and it becomes a great prompt. So like 6 words, well, everyone can do that. And that's a way of getting people going. And this page goes on actually for 30 or 40 different things. But then you can see the family wrote their own questions. We have some generic questions that pre-populate based on, the type of milestone it is. But really the better thing is when the family takes control and writes their own questions or edits the ones that we put there to make it specific to this person, as they did in this case. So, this is kind of clever what they did here, because it also became a way of organizing by different friend groups. So they did this question: what tasks do you remember Cuckoo doing at the Church of Redeemer? So the friends from church kind of gathered in that thread, and it also becomes a wonderful way for gathering images. Please upload your favorite picture of Cuckoo. And the way the system works is if someone in California loads a photo, it comes into a common library. So it's a way of, instead of everyone emailing photos around, all the photos that people have, like the one on the Life timeline of which was about Kukula's time in college. We had just done like a little placeholder thing the years she went to college. And then one of the people who came to the funeral who went to college with her said, oh my God, I've got some incredible photos of her from college, and went on her phone and loaded them up. They were all photos that the husband and sons had never seen before. So it's a way of gathering, these keepsakes really from all over the country.
So is it like there are administrators who can change the questions, like family members, but then anybody public can post, so you don't have to necessarily invite people to be able to?
Yes, exactly. And so that's a good question. So there's basically privacy settings. You can decide if you want this to be public, where anyone can see it, or private, where it's just entirely people you invite, or there's an in-between setting that's semi-public where anyone can see it, but only people you invite can post to it. And then within that, you can invite people, either through email or Facebook. And essentially the way it works is what you said. It's like the people who create it are in effect the administrators, and they can make co-creators, we call them, and they're basically co-administrators. And you can do as many of those as you want, just as a way of helping out. And those people, are kind of all powerful. They can decide, if the renegade uncle posts some horrible thing, they can delete that.
Is it something that could be used with Ancestry.com?
Yes, right now the way to use it with Ancestry.com is you can just take the links from LifePost and put them in Ancestry.com. Yeah, because it's very much, sometimes we talk about LifePost as being Ancestry.com for people who are alive or for people who have only recently died, but it's a very similar spirit to it because you're creating this very rich biography. And you can see and this is the last tool is the overview page, which is the simplest, which is if you just want a photo and then a place for people to post stories and images. We do have a lot of pet memorials and adoptions. This was a home funeral.
So the overview page was a tribute to the dog in life, and then the life story led with the funeral photo.
Mm-hmm. And then this is a video of the
This is Rich Matkin's dog. Rich studied with Jerry Grace.
Right. She's actually going to be talking about this in her.
Oh, really? Wonderful.
Here's the
Oh, this is a beautiful case. This is the LifePost that was started by me and then taken up by the friends and family of a designer in New York named Gertie Berg, whose work and life mission was to gather fabric remnants from the garment district and make beautiful, beautiful garments out of these scraps of fabric. This will show, and we posted video. She was also a bit of a performance artist, and she did funny performance pieces of, stop on that one, Steve, with herself in high heels, picking up garbage. She was always about repurposing things. And in her illness, this is remarkable, as she was getting treatment for her cancer, she became enamored and fascinated by hospital gowns. So she made couture garments out of her hospital gowns. So how else would people have known to relate to that and see her beauty other than posting it online as part of her salute and farewell built by her friends? She had a green burial, and they posted photos of that. And this was a group that really took up the tool and made it their own. Another thing I got them started with, as Gertie was ailing, it was one of those great cases where you got to meet the dying woman before her death. I took my iPhone and just spontaneously began to film her. She was in the hospital bed holding an iPad, showing me her designs and her work on an iPad. And I know she was self-conscious about the way her face looked. So I just started filming her hands and interviewing her about her work, and then sent that little clip of video to the family after her death. They loved it, just listening to Gertie's voice again, talking about her artwork. And that was posted on the LifePost, so now is part of her living tribute.
Can I just ask, with those links to social media, if you click on one of those, does the whole post go, or just the page, or?
That's a good question.
It depends where it is, but like on this page, if you clicked on Facebook, the whole page would go. If you click into a particular question and click on the Facebook thing, it will go directly to that question. And we spent a lot of time on trying to get the Facebook integration right. We have an awkward relationship with Facebook because on the one hand, we think Facebook is the problem. But in other ways, it's actually quite amazing. And people can put, very quickly get messages out to their friends. And it's especially good, I think, in the kind of hours and days right after a death when people are really just wanting a place to kind of gather and be with other friends. So it's supposed to work kind of collaborative with Facebook. So when you make a LifePost, what people usually do is then put it on Facebook, put a link on Facebook, so that they can then come from Facebook and kind of just go deeper. And the other thing that we've done is we've made it so that you can invite people via Facebook, and you can also pull your photos directly from Facebook. So if you've already loaded all these great photos of someone on Facebook, you don't have to reload them again. You just pull them right from Facebook. I don't think we have the video working of the wasp's nest.
I just love this, that Michael's wife is the kind of detail you can capture in a video. She posted a video of how Mike got rid of wasps. It has him holding a large torch. And
Not the people.
Burning out a wasp.
Not the people, the bugs.
Not white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, but actually a nest of wasps. And this was all their own. They customized these questions. So how to get rid of wasps, Mike style, and Mike-isms, and how did Mike change your life? And it was an activity that I know was healing to her, and remembering the things and having other people appreciate them publicly. It was a good thing for her.
This is one that you can just tell by looking at it was kind of a therapeutic thing for the family. They made this one, I think, after the boy had died. It's probably one of, I wouldn't say this is typical because it's quite detailed, but it shows, how deep you can go if you want to tell someone's entire life story, and each one of those are, is a little gallery unto themselves, and I think it was just really helpful. I won't go through the whole thing, but actually I'm going to skip down to the bottom.
Over and over again, they say this little boy was just known for his happiness and his joyfulness.
So
that's the whole memorial
here
service.
he died, and then at that point, the timeline turned into something else. It turned into, a way of chronicling the memorial service and people's thoughts afterwards. His headstone, they did a memorial run, so they kept adding to it. And this is like a really key point that makes it so different from the traditional death notice, is it's kind of alive. You can keep adding to it as new things happen, as new memories happen, at the 1-year anniversary, at the 5-year, whenever you're moved to. And it always, to me, it's one of like the most gratifying things I see on the site is I'll just see people come back to a site that was built a year ago, and they'll say, I just had a dream about so-and-so, and they write it down, and they post it. And in that sense, it's kind of like a journal.
Can you link between pages? I'm just thinking, say, my husband and wife, they never done a year ago, and then, families link parents together.
Right now, it's something we're working on, like a nicer, crisper version of that. The way you can do it now is just take the link and put it in the other one. So basically, you can do hot links throughout any of these things.
And
I
each,
think this is great. I mean, this is really, really great because Facebook is horrible when this kind of stuff is just terrible. So I'm really glad you guys are doing it. But I wanted to ask you, I'm sitting here thinking, gosh, well, do people ever do it for themselves? Put the questions up.
Mm-hmm.
So that in 20 years or 5 years or 2 days when I'm dead, whatever the time may be, that I will get the ball rolling for my family. So that's something.
It's a great question. I think the answer is yes, we've had some of that, and I think that part of what would make that happen more is if we work with funeral directors or people like yourselves or people in hospice or just communities that are already thinking about that. We've had some people just do it, but it's enough of a unusual thing that people aren't thinking to do it. And the way we sometimes see it, so there's a tool, as we mentioned at the beginning, this isn't just a memorial platform. You can use this for really any life milestone, though 2/3 of what we have are memorials. We have about 4,000 LifePosts made. But there's a category called personal history. And that's the one people are using to basically tell their own stories. Occasionally, you'll also see people use birthdays as a kind of moment. It's less for the person to do it for themselves in that case than that for the family to do essentially the memorial service while the person's alive. I mean, everyone who's, every funeral you go to, someone says it's a shame that they couldn't have heard this. And so people are doing that. They're actually pulling together the stories while the person's alive so that they can participate and hear it. And I think in the long run, I do think that will develop in exactly the way you're saying, that people will start to take some ownership of this beforehand. And it won't be the end of it, but it gets it started. And then after they die, maybe the family adds their own interpretation.
What makes me think of that is this whole generation of young people that are coming up. This is the platform that they're going to go to. It's, it might feel a little bit to some of us, but this is how my kids are going to find out that their mother was born in Santa Cruz, California.
Right.
Right,
Because right now I don't know if they know that.
right, or they forgot.
And increasingly hearing you talk about why you moved from California or whatever, actually. And then, the thing I love about the WASPs example also is it's such a great, the only analogy I can think of is like a pointillist painting. People keep thinking that they have to tell a whole story. They really don't. They have to do a point. They have to do a moment or a story or an example. And if enough people do the points, it comes together with a beautiful, vivid photo, more spectacular than what a single person could do. The one I thought maybe I would actually show this kind of the tribute wall thing. I don't know if
I
this
want
is.
to do Bob Rosen too.
Oh, okay, good.
And
You
then
want to do Bob Rosen?
Oh, the tribute wall's important. This was a case that came to me where she just needed a celebrant. Another firm was managing the cremation, so, and I only had 24 hours to put a bit of a service together, but he was a sports statistician, a collector of sports stats and numbers, and I came home and said to Steve, I'm working on a service about a man who I think might be kind of famous in his own discrete field. And we got on the internet and started pulling out things. Turned out the New Yorker had profiled him, and the more and more we found, this is a case where we built the LifePost, but it really blossomed in just a matter of a couple of hours. And then we asked the family to send us some photos, and they posted them. And then other sports reporters from all over the country began to tweet about his death. Some of them at basketball games, major NBA games, started to announce Bob's death at the games. So we got little snaps of the video where the death was being announced in the presence of basketball players. And
Those are tweets. So that's increasingly one of the ways you can tell someone's story is gathering social media posts that other people are doing.
And this became such a gift for the woman. So by the time I was there for the service, there's the thing about his death being announced at a ball game. And it's just, I know she's going back to look at it late at night when she's feeling blue.
So that's sort of an example of, it wasn't so much the family pulling it together. In this case, it was us. But it didn't take long. if you get a little facile at this, it took a few hours for us to put together, and it was, I think, such a kind of a great gift to them that it was really well worth it. And it's something, you can think about. The other thing I wanted to show you is, this is a little bit different. So we've showed you mostly the LifePost itself, LifePost.com, and it's very individual oriented. It's really about going deep into telling the story of someone's life. We gotten a lot of requests from media companies, like local newspapers, Huffington Post, for some kind of slimmed down version of LifePost that they could put on their site. So we did that about 6 months ago, and it's like super easy. It's a little piece of code that they just copy and paste right into their site. It takes like 5 minutes. But it's really turned into some interesting things. This was something, the NBC channel in Philadelphia, Channel 10, did a series on suicide. And they came to us and said, we'd like it if there's some way that we could make it possible for the families to pay tribute to people who have died from suicide. And we'd like it also to be a place where people who have survived suicide to tell their stories. And we'd like it all to be in the same place. And honestly, I didn't have any idea if this was going to work because we'd never had any experience with whether people really wanted to talk about suicide in a kind of communal sense on a TV news website. But it really did, and it was kind of amazing. And so these are basically just regular people, posted photos. The little gold strips are ones where it's a survivor, and the black strips are people who died. And people just sent in, posted a photo and a little tribute, a little mini biography of this person. And I wanted to show it to you because it's a really different feel to it. It's about community in some ways. You do have the individual biographies, but what's interesting to me about it is kind of recreating a sense of community. And this is done, by a TV station, and we've had newspapers do it as well. But you could also do this yourself. I mean, if you have, or a funeral home can do this, or a church could do this, or a house of worship, or any organization could basically use this as a way, if they thought there was value in kind of telling the stories all in one place, so you could see, and it doesn't even have to just be about deaths, it can be about, we have a church now that's working on a kind of mashup version of this that's going to be births and confirmations and deaths and weddings all in one place. I think that'll be really interesting. But I don't know if this is like of any use to you. It's mostly been used so far by media companies, but I kind of was curious whether or not there are other kind of applications for it. Yeah, where you could have all of the home's funeral stories in one place to try to kind of create a sense of kinship between the families. I don't know if there's value in that, but it was a question I had really for you.
So how do you access this?
This you have to write to us and tell us what you want, and then we'll send you a little piece of code that's customized to what you want.
No, but if you wanted to add to this particular.
Oh, in this case, you'd go to the Channel 10 website. And so that's different from the LifePost thing, where on all the previous stuff we showed you, you go to LifePost. Here, it's meant to be something that feels like it's part of the partner's site. So people don't really even know, other than this little powered by LifePost thing, people don't know LifePost has anything to do with this. It's like Channel 10 did this thing for them, or a particular funeral home did this thing for them.
So is that still live and active now?
This one is, yeah. I'd slowed down a little bit because they've stopped promoting it, but we're still getting. And there's also some kind of quality control to this that's additional, that was requested because these were newspapers and they didn't want people just posting all sorts of stuff. So there's a little administrative panel that you get, and it's just you click approve or reject to make sure you want it to go live. and we take care of everything else, but that's your responsibility, is to decide, do you want this, is this okay? And then it goes there, and you can basically, it's really up to the partner to tell people about it. They won't find out about it on LifePost, but it's something you can use indefinitely if you feel like there's a value in having a kind of communal experience.
We have 15 minutes left. Maybe show them how to build a LifePost.
Oh, the little movie?
Video, yeah.
Yeah, because we don't have a live internet connection, we
wanted to take you on the site and guide you through a whole experience of the absence of the internet.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Yes,
Yes.
while he's doing that, please.
It reminds me just a little bit of CaringBridge, and I like that you
Yes.
subscribe
Very
to
much.
stories there. Can you subscribe to LifePost people and get updates sent to you?
well, you can do that for particular people.
Okay.
We don't yet have like a kind of global, if you want all sorts of LifePost stuff. We were kind of cautious on that because we figured most people wouldn't want that, and they were interested in the family. So there's like a whole set of settings that basically, if you are invited as a contributor to someone's LifePost, you will automatically, totally modeled on CaringBridge, frankly, you will then, when someone else posts something, you'll get a note. Or you won't get it constantly, but at the end of the day, you'll get a note that says, these additional people have posted. Okay, thank you
I
for
think
helping.
this is absolutely amazing, and
Thank you.
compensation worthy. Are you being compensated?
No.
Great
question. So right now it's free. What we started to try to charge direct to consumer, and we had a really hard time with that. And I think people are used to things being free on Facebook.
I
And
noticed there was no advertisement, which is.
well, and that's intentional. We've made a decision early on that we wanted to come up with a business model that involved people paying so we didn't have to have ads. Because this is kind of a sacred space we're trying to create, and very hard to do that with ads. So what we're trying to do now, which I think may work a little better than the charging people who are used to getting it for free, is we're working with organizations. And so, for instance, we're about to launch a thing with a small chain of funeral homes in New Jersey where they're going to kind of integrate this into what they do, and then the funeral home's going to pay us. They'll pay us $25 per, it's still a very good deal for them. And if that works, that might become a real model for us. So we could work with organizations, basically kind of empower them to do this with us, and then they would pay us a little something for essentially using the tools. And that's kind of what we're hoping.
About donations. Do you have a thing for donations?
You know, we don't. We didn't think of that because it's not a nonprofit yet. I mean, it is a nonprofit, but not in that way. We might as well go all the way and become a nonprofit. I don't know if my investors will appreciate that, but I think that it may happen.
Can't you have a nonprofit branch to your business? Or
Yes, I think that is a way to do it.
done that ourselves?
That may be. I think that's a really interesting idea. We also now have the ability to, you could take, one thing we got as a request and a complaint over the course of, we've been up for about a year, is I've done all this work and all these friends and family have done this, but could I have something physical? So now, as of a week ago, yay, you can turn the whole LifePost into a book. And it's really amazing. We're working with a place in Brooklyn that fortuitously just is really high quality. And the thing that's cool about it is it's not just a photo book, it's all the stories too, laid out in the timeline, and it's...
How can you not charge for
That we're charging for.
that? It seems like you should be able to charge for the other. It's just how you present it.
It could be we didn't present it properly, and any advice is welcome. This is the... So this is just walking through how you would start one, just to show how simple it is. Celebration? No, I don't think that's what I want. I want a memorial. Okay, I'm doing one for my pet. So just type in the name of the pet. That is, in fact, the name of our dog. You decide which privacy setting you want, and then you go here. Some of the information is already carried over. You just put in the death date and the birth date. And then this is like this is a short space, not a huge amount of space here. It's to kind of create a card. I figured he wouldn't know if I wrote that about him. So then I'm going seeing, okay, I'm pulling up some pictures.
That's from your desktop or your...
That's right from my desktop. Okay, I don't like the crop. I'm going to change the crop a little bit. And that, you have created a LifePost, so that took about 60 seconds. Now you can go deeper and do, so it says, you know, do you want to do one of these deeper things? So, so you can go to LifeQueues, and this will show you how, how it works.
It populates the name automatically.
Right, it
But
comes
you can
in.
change it.
I was like, I don't really want the full Chester Hercules Waldman name, so I'm just going to say Chester, save it, and there it is. And so you can answer. This is an interesting thing that's a real generational divide. Most people my age, if you post a question, they write words. Most people of my kids' age, you post a question and they answer with a photo. So, which I love. It's a great, exactly. It's like, it's a whole different vocabulary. So that one, I don't like that question. I'm just getting rid of that one. And now I thought, you didn't do the best question of all. I'm going to write my own question. And there it is right away. It's like super easy. And now I'm going to answer that question. And then you can send these out to your friends to, sometimes what I tell people to do if they don't really want to deal with a funeral, with the full thing, is write a short thing and then write a few questions. Just do that. That by itself will take 15 minutes, and then send that out to your friends. So while you're dealing with the details of the funeral or whatever,
That's just
your
security
friends,
blanket.
your friends can be starting to add their stories. So here's the timeline that it was pre-populated with the life and death, but that's kind of ugly, and I don't want my name on it anymore. So I'm just going to think of birth. Okay, we have a picture of him as a puppy somewhere. He was all black when he was born. Now he's black and white. So they can add an event that is a new event. I don't know if you can see this, but found the best chicken bone ever. We live in a Caribbean neighborhood where there are many jerk chicken restaurants. So it's kind of paradise and hell for a dog. There's chicken bones everywhere. So anyway, this was like a new event that I added to the thing. Added a photo. You don't have to have a photo, but if you do, it looks nice. That's not actually a photo related to chicken bones, but I cheated. And there it is. And of course, you can do it out of order. It just orders it automatically. So if you think of something later, this is different from a physical scrapbook where you've done the whole scrapbook and then you realize, oh no, I forgot the high school years. So this is just a little glimpse of how you can invite people to it. That's from the just an email list. Please add a story. And then it came an error message, which wasn't actually what I was intending, but it reminded me that I hadn't published it. So that's like an extra layer of protection to this that's different from Facebook. Facebook, you post a photo and it goes live. We decided to kind of have a little pause to it where you create it, and then there's one last step, like you can look at to make sure you're ready, and then you publish it. And you can also invite people straight through Facebook. And then I think the other thing, I can't remember if it's on this movie. Oh, I did that already. Oh, the other thing is just to give you a little sense. If you were like doing this for a bunch of people, like if you actually did this as part of your work or something, you basically get this kind of console that shows all the different things that you've done, so you can get easily from one to another. It also shows all the recent posts of all the life posts you've done. So like that shows both Chester and the other thing, and then various administrative things like, oh, I sent an invitation to Amy, she still hasn't responded, I'm going to send it again. And then if you want to get real fancy, you can go even deeper into the settings, and here you can regulate how often do the updates come, or I want this private and that public, or things like that. And see, that's changing it from having immediate notifications to being daily notifications. So, you know, a lot of people don't even ever get to this page, but if you're doing more than one, or if you're doing it as kind of a service for other people, then you'd get familiar with that area as a way of just managing it a little bit better. I think that is it.
What's the shopping cart up there? Is that for the books?
Yes, that's for the books.
Have you heard of a company called, service called Storyworth?
Yes.
So I'm just thinking, and that is a service where it's for people who are live, and you can subscribe. I did this with both my
And
mother
is that the
my
one where you
mother,
get
and it
questions?
sends little questions, leading
Storyworth.
questions, where you can invite people to create questions. And my father died 3 years ago, and he had written his entire autobiography with old slides, and I mean, it's just this incredible piece of his legacy that he left us. And my mother, who's 92, and she's wanting to capture some of this, it's getting more and more difficult for her. So that's partly why I subscribe to this service for $49 a year. And I was just thinking, this has so much potential also as sort of a legacy tool.
Yeah.
And that maybe there would be a way
Yes.
you could charge for that
Yes.
piece of it, and then when
Yeah.
someone dies and it becomes more of a obituary kind of thing, then it could be a free service. But this
We've
is
given
just
some
fantastic.
hospice trainings, and if, you know, there's that awkward period where everybody's waiting and it doesn't feel like there's anything you can do,
Yeah.
but this is something you can start doing.
And then just so, I mean, that it's interactive. And so I
Yes.
could see taking this
Very-
back to my mother, and it would be so helpful for
Right.
her to be able to then say, here's something from me, or rather a photo, and prompt that, and then be able to have that contained and start to
Yeah, I think
capture
that's a
her
really good
story.
idea. And by the way, the other thing you can do is if you have some other storytelling tool, you made a movie or you did Storyworth, or you get an audio thing through StoryCorps or something like that, you can then put that on the LifePost too. They're not they're not mutually exclusive. LifePost in a way can be kind of like central command, like where you can just take all the different ways that you've told a story and put it all together. This, by the way, is just to give you an example of, this is a page on LifePost that pulls together all of the LifePosts that Amy did, or that Fitting Tribute Funeral Services did. So that's like a tool for her that she can, when she's working with families, she can show this.
I can visit with my peeps. So I guess we better wrap up, but your response has been very rewarding and nice to see.
Are there any other, we actually have a few more minutes, so if there are other questions.
That is fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
Well, I do have one question. You know, my children's whole life is on video, not, so getting things from like old ways of recording slides and
Right.
video to
That's a good
this
question.
digital thing. How do we do that?
Great question.
Well, for young people, it's easy, right? They could just take it from the video from their phone and they just upload it straight on to LifePost. So I couldn't show it because we're not live, but there's a video upload function. For everyone else, it's a real issue, and I think we found that when we started to follow up on people who had started LifePost but hadn't seemed to have done much with it, the number one thing they said is, "Oh, I'm really looking forward to getting into it, but I have to scan all my photo books." I was like, "Oh my God, that's going to take years." So what we actually said is just go to the photos on the wall and take out your phone and take a picture of the picture. Now, that's not the best quality in the world. Eventually, you should get a proper scan, but it totally works. And so that's just a little tip, for making that bridge to make it happen, because people really do get stuck on that. There are whole firms now, because this is such a big problem. There are companies out there where you send them a big tray of slides, and it's pretty expensive, but I've done it because it was so valuable, and I've gotten the old movies digitized and all that. And so there's a lot of places out there that can help you with that. But if you don't want to spend the money, there's some cheats.
A little question about the longevity of this. Is it something that you're going to be able to sustain for years to come? It's not going to disappear.
Having worked on the internet for a long time and having seen many websites that said they were going to be there for eternity that went away the next year, we were very conscious of this because this is not to be messed around with. This is like someone's permanent story. So point one is we're never going to take these down, and that's actually different from a lot of other sites where you get this horrifying note that says, "That's a really nice thing you built. If you want it to stay up, you'll have to pay us another $79. It's like a shakedown, basically. A pity if anything were to happen to your mother's memorial. But the other thing that we've done as two kind of backups to that, we made an arrangement with something called the Internet Archive, whose whole business it's not business, it's a nonprofit. They call themselves a library of the internet. We're making copies of all the public LifePosts to put in the Internet Archive, so they'll be there. And then the other thing is the book. It's like the safest thing, to really make sure that it's preserved even after the internet explodes, is make a book.
That's very cool. Thought of everything.
Do you have an example of the book?
Oh, I should have brought
Oh,
one.
we do, but we didn't bring it.
I didn't bring it.
Maybe upload like a video of it or something, or?
Yeah, it's a
probably
little
just
bit,
have
it's
it
a bit.
Well,
bit of a
if you look,
Shutterfly
yeah,
kind of
if you
book.
look at, see, it's not a live site, but if you look up at that link that says book and keepsakes, it gives you a little bit of a sense, and we're adding some video. It's the company, and it's not because of us. I mean, the company that's done this, we found this company called Adorama, which is it's a photo book company that started out as a photo book company for professional photographers. So I think they have in their DNA, they just have like a different sense of quality. It's kind of mind-blowing. You get these books and it's really beautiful. And that's them. I guess we found them. We get credit for that.
So we've thought that sometimes when people are having problems, we come to the aid over the telephone of friends and family. That certainly would be true with you guys as you learn to use this and experiment with it. And then maybe someday we will have a concierge service where we have people.
And that's actually
building
something
this out.
or they could. That's one other thing, since you asked about business models. One other thing we're going to do is we get a lot of requests. We get people saying, this looks great, but I don't have time to do this. And though I won't pay $39 for use of the platform, I will pay $300 if you do it for me. It was like that. That was eye-opening. Like,
Well, and you're a journalist, you can be.
Right.
yeah. So that's that's something we actually know how to do and have friends who know how to do it. But it's also something you can do. I mean, one of the things that people have approached us and said, could we be your concierge person? It may not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's actually a service you could offer and charge for it. And we'd ask you to throw us a few pennies on the side, but it could become part of what you do if you think there's value to it or if you like this kind of thing. And then, because then you have the value of working directly, you're right there physically with the family and can help them in a different way and interview them. And it may be something, we haven't done that yet, but we've gotten so many requests for it that I think there might be something there.
Yeah.
And we're fine with you being entrepreneurial and developing a service for yourself.
Have you protected your idea in some way so the world doesn't start copying it and trying to charge? I mean, can you copyright?
It's really hard on the internet.
Intellectual property.
Patent, I would think.
Well, we have trademarks on the some of it, but our lawyer, when we asked them this question, they said, "Good luck with that."
Do it better than anybody, and you got it.
Thank you.
Wow.
He said the most effective way to protect yourself is to try to get big. He said, that sounds easy. We'll do that.
I'd like, oh, yes.
I'm sorry, I was just looking on your website here, and it said get an estimate on the books. Is it depending on the price, depending on
Yes.
how large your?
Yes.
what is
Yeah,
the
the book cost, and this is true for like Shutterfly and things like that too, depends on. So the minimum book, the shortest book that they can publish and still use their printing presses is 10 pages. And I think a 10-page book is like $39. I just did one for my father that I think came out to, was very long. It was like 90 pages, and that was like $150. So that gives a range.
This is like bound, I mean, it's a substantial book,
Yeah, it really is.
it's not just like a chat.
Do they ship those worldwide?
This was a huge issue, actually. No, they don't right now. They ship it to, right now it's set up to ship to America and Canada. And so what we're doing to kind of work around that for the cases where we have requests from overseas is we're shipping it to my house. And then I'm going to the post office and mailing it.
I thought you were going to say then you're getting a play.
So I guess when I think about my development and when I first began to come to these conferences, I really didn't know much about green burial. I didn't know about home funeral. My ambition as I came to you guys was to just deliver better funerals to people. I'd been inspired by my father's service that was music infused and very passionate. And so through you, I've learned so much. And this is inspired by our work when we speak of empowering families, improving service, meeting the emotional needs of families in mourning. That's what we're all about. So thank you for being here.